You're on.
Okay, so this planned project concerns volcanic mercury contributions to the global mercury budget. And the genesis for this project was the two findings from the global mercury assessment for 2018 that I talked about earlier. One is the uncertainty around the natural source contribution to global mercury emissions to air. And secondly, the aspect of mercury that it can travel as a gas from anywhere, it's being emitted into the atmosphere and to be deposited anywhere on the globe. Next, please. So let's talk a little bit about why Canada should be interested in this sort of thing. So most of Canada's mercury being deposited in air now comes from global sources, both natural and anthropogenic. We don't have large industrial sources of our own anymore, so most of the mercury coming out of our air comes from elsewhere. But it's a fact based on blood and hair mercury analyses that there are thousands of Canadians who exhibit above guideline levels of mercury in their bodies. Those are people, often First Nations, but not always by any means. They are people who eat a lot of wild fish and, in the north, marine mammals. And the large uncertainties around natural sources to the global atmosphere impacts the reliability of the global budget and modelling, which is firstly what the United Nations relies on to develop guidelines for the international community. It also impacts agencies like Environment Canada, who want to model where mercury being deposited in Canada come from. So Environment Canada will be interested in the results of this. This particular project will look at Iceland volcanic systems. Why? Because firstly, Iceland is believed to be one of the largest volcanic gas sources in the Northern Hemisphere. The other would be the Mediterranean as a whole. But there's an Italian group looking at volcanic mercury emissions from Mediterranean volcanoes. No one has ever worked on Icelandic volcanoes before, but there's a lot of different kinds of volcanic systems represented there, from geysers to vents and fumaroles that are releasing fumes all the time. We're not talking about measuring erupting volcanoes. That would be sort of suicidal. We're talking about the 24-hour-a-day, 365-day-a-year fumes that are always venting mercury of some concentration into the atmosphere, and getting a good handle on that from Iceland. And we see this, my colleagues and I, as being the first step in a planned multinational consortium to be led by Hamets and I from Aarhus University in Denmark. Next. So the people involved in the project in the initial stage, this will be done with Brock Edwards, who will be an RAP student, PhD student for 3 years, starting September 1st. He'll be based at the University of Manitoba, where Fei Wang, Industrial Research Chair, will be based. And Fei actually will be providing most of the funding for this project, all of the operational costs, as well as any of Brock's salary beyond the 3 years provided by the RAP program. Will be provided by Fei Wang. And then other contributors from Dr. Melissa Pfeffer from the Icelandic Meteorological Office, who's their volcanic gas specialist, will be basically piggybacking our sampling on her sampling of the major gases. Bruce Karsgaard, who's my go-to guy to ask questions about volcanoes and volcanic systems, and of course Hamets and I. In addition, I can mention Sue Store, who's an Environment Canada atmospheric mercury modeler, will be involved in later stages of this project. Next, please. So that's my contact information. That's pretty much it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.